Hi everybody, Saul Sunforge here for Dungeons and Taverns. Hopefully you're having a good day. Today's video I wanted to make for primarily for the players, although DMs can feel free to check it out. I feel like I'm probably going to get a few dislikes from DMs maybe, but hopefully not. It's all pretty good information. But being a DM is hard work. In my estimation, it's often rewarding work. There are a lot of aspects that differentiate a good DM from a great DM. But today, I wanted to talk about some of to players specifically on signs that you can look out for a bad DM. Not all these are going to be red flags, but in my experience, enough yellow flags add up to red flags. So just be cognizant of that. And these are really in no particular order of grievance or anything like that. The first one is scheduling. If you notice that they're punctual or do they cancel at the sessions at the last minute. If they cancel sessions at the last minute, often with little or no explanation, unless there's an emergency, or worse off, they do a no call, no show, and just never explain. You just miss the session. They don't ever explain themselves. It usually leads to a downward spiral. But that's often a sign of a pretty bad DM who may lack preparation skills or something like that. Sometimes it can be other things like they're nervous or things like that. Maybe give them a little bit of leeway on that if you notice those types of situations. But generally, if a DM does no call no show a few sessions, like say like every third or fourth session or something like that, after a while, you probably should respect your own time and just get out of there. The next one is plagiarism. You're supposed to take inspiration and ideas from characters or maybe even plots from shows or things like that, or things from that you read in books, or the more obscure the reference that you're referencing, the reference that you're utilizing, the better it probably is. No one likes to be a DM in a campaign and have a player go, "Oh, hey, that's Aragorn, isn't it? Hey, that's Harry Potter." Don't do those things. But you can take inspiration from these characters. You should change them up a bit. Maybe change their voice, their appearance, maybe even their race. You could even change their sex, and then that will completely, throw most people, off of any type of trail like that. But generally, you don't want to be plagiarizing, exact events that they happen. You don't want to watch an episode of Game of Thrones, like the Battle of the Bastards, and then have a Battle of the Bastards in your campaign, and then call it the Battle of the Bastards. You don't want to do that. You want to change it up more than enough so that it has similarities still with the original aspect because you're taking from it, but it's completely different. That's what you would like. But and usually you want to have different character names too. Usually, I use some characters in my current campaign right now that actually are named after the characters that they were, but it's intentional, and I let it be known. And the characters are far more expansive than they ever were in the series of old video games from the 80s and 90s that they were in for brief moments, and like I just expanded them out to be actual people. So there's a little bit of leeway, but you don't want a word for word copy of Helm's Deep or something crazy battle. The next one would be excessive banning. And what I mean by that is not banning players or whatever, but it's the DM's prerogative to alter or not allow certain spells, classes, races, magical items, abilities, what have you. That's the DM's prerogative. But when you have a DM who bans several source books, several magical spells, it just, they ban a bunch of races. There isn't a lore reason for it. They just don't want to deal with the mechanics. Really, is what it boils down to. Almost a lot of these will boil down to just somebody who's very lazy, maybe. Not somebody who's maybe not very proactive. Um, but usually it's because they're scared of what you can do with those things. And a lot of DMs, maybe not being very good at improv, tend to try to railroad you, and that's usually the key sign of them railroading you is their excessive banning. It's because they're trying to limit your paths, so this way they don't have to think of all the possible outcomes it could be, and then react pretty much on the fly to the said outcome. Let's see what else. Now, banning some of the game-breaking spells for fear that that exact situation playing out, it's understandable, and it depends on if it's a group of friends who have played together before, or it's just a bunch of strangers on Roll20. So you got to kind of read the situation there. But typically, the spells that are banned would be like things that would allow you to transport yourself and your party to other planes of existence. Some DMs will ban the wish spell because of how powerful it is, but it's as powerful as the other ninth level spells. But it's like the most powerful because it could do any of the other stuff that any of the other things can do. But there's also a lot of leeway with wish too, according to your DM. If you have a vindictive DM, or we'll talk about that later, or somebody who's out to get you, you probably don't want to use wish spell in their game anyway. And then so the planar spells that transport you to Avernus or the Abyss or wherever, Ghana, but excuse me. It's better in theater of the mind, and it's understandable why DMs ban these types of mass travel, real fast spells. It's because, at least in my experience, I make my maps, and most DMs make their maps. They might find them or whatever online or something real quick. But if you're transporting everybody to a different plane of existence off the cuff, and then how do you improv a map, like an entire realm? How do you really can't. So it's theater of the mind. You could do those spells and it works out much better. I allow all those spells in theater of the mind, and I'm mostly through making maps of all those different planes and stuff too. And so, I'm a crazy person. Most DMs aren't going to go through that kind of effort. They're just not going to do it. Especially if they're not being a paid DM or whatever. But if they start banning things like wish, bags of holding, your ability to face step, anything that you can't teleport, they start banning healing potions. You probably want to, before you leave their campaign, maybe talk to them first. Let them know that their behavior probably isn't acceptable, at least to you. Maybe talk to the group as a whole and approach the DM as a whole, if it's really that bad. And then, after your talk, talk to them calmly. But your time is valuable. Even as a player, everybody's time is valuable. It's the DM's time is valuable too, of course, and they need more of it to prepare. But your time as a player is still valuable. And so, if you talk to your DM and your recourse of, your discussion hasn't provided any fruitful, advancement towards, fixing some of these issues, it's probably best for your time and for your sanity to just get out of there, find a different campaign. I know there isn't as many DMs nearly at all as there are players. There just would never be, because most people they rather play for, DMing takes a lot of time. And so it's kind of easier just to be a player. But you can find other campaigns, In-person campaigns might be a lot harder to find. Especially with the COVID stuff, it's winding down, but people still, want to distance and things like that. Or maybe you just don't know many people who play, or maybe you live in a rural area, whatever. But you can always find a campaign on virtual tabletops or Roll20. There's a lot of YouTubers that offer their Discord. You can find games in that. I'll eventually have something like that going too. And, I'm about to release a video tomorrow, so you'll be in the loop if you watch that. The next one I would like to talk about is let's see here, aggressive targeting. When the DM singles out players who may have had a very clever a solution for a problem, like maybe they're trying to bypass an encounter totally, or they're trying to bypass a door or a wall or some type of obstacle, really any obstacle, puzzle, riddle, whatever. DMs sometimes, when they don't have much else planned because they expected the group to take literally half a session to figure out a puzzle, they might hit the oh shit button, and they're going to start targeting that player for being creative. And if you notice that, that's a huge red flag, and you want to leave real quick. You don't want to be the victim of an aggressive DM targeting you. It's not fun for you. It's a waste of your time. Time is a valuable commodity, and so you should probably not. You probably shouldn't even talk to the DM. Maybe depends on your relationship, I guess, with the DM. Maybe they don't even realize they're doing it. It's possible because there's so much on the DM's plate. It's possible they may not realize they are targeting you, but nobody wants that. But remember, though, that there are also creatures that are very intelligent, a lot of humanoids especially. So the DM plays the adversary as they are targeting you because that creature's intelligence, and so they would be targeting you. Like if you're knocked unconscious, they're going to come and stab you up a bit when you're on the ground to make sure you're dead. That's not the DM targeting you. That's playing an intelligent creature, what they would do. If you're low on hit points and you're bleeding or you're hurt, a lot of animals and things like that will notice that. Pack tactics, those types of animals, they'll go after the weaker players. They might go after the backline players, your healers, maybe ranged druids, your sorcerers, wizards, bards. Those are the types of intelligent creatures we'll go after. So that's not really targeting. What I'm talking about is like they try to put you in no-win situations for your character specifically, and it's not based off of actions that you have taken. If it's based off of actions that you've taken or inactions that you have not committed, then that's not targeting either. So make sure you understand the differences before you do decide to discuss it with the DM, because accusing the DM of targeting if they're not actually doing it can also create a very hostile and bad situation that you've created at that point. So make sure you realize the differences, and maybe take notes of when it happens, so this way you can tell the DM this is what happened, this, and then maybe ask them like, hey, it's happened to me way more than it's happened to anybody else. Why is that? If they have a logical answer, you can either accept it or not. That's up to you. But if it's a logical answer, I'd probably advise you to accept it, because that's just a part of the game. The next point is preferential treatment. Everyone likes the spotlight. It's their time to shine, and they're taking center stage. But everyone should get a turn in the sunlight, right? So if someone's getting far more magic items, they're way more loot. They're getting more time, like they're getting half the session for their character, or it seems like they're able to be interjected into every scene, even ones they're nowhere near or privy to conversations or things that happen that their character just has no chance of knowing, but it's allowed to happen. That's preferential treatment. Oftentimes, it's the players trying to force themselves to have everything about them, And I talked about that in my player archetype video. The me type players. And there's an awful lot of those players. If you are that type, I'd probably advise you not to be, because most people are going to think you're a dick. So, but joining a campaign just to feel like a tag along is never fun. If you feel like you're part of some other character's backstory and every arc seems like it's focused on them, that's the DM giving preferential treatment. In that case, you should probably vote with the other players on what to do. Maybe you could all approach at the same time, because there's a great chance that the other players are going to feel just like you do. So have a conversation with the other players, and then have a polite conversation with the DM. If the DM isn't open to your conversation, it's probably time to leave. The typical examples that I could give you is if the DM has their husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, lover, significant other in the campaign, their best friend, or versus the other people are strangers. Those are the type of situations where ideally a DM is going to favor a player. And another one I just want to mention real quick is if a DM is wanting a romantic relationship with one of the players, they'll use in-game tactics in order to sway a player out of game. If you're noticing that, just leave right there. Just leave right away. You don't even have to wait till the end of the session, because it gets really annoying. It becomes a time waste where you're just sitting there watching two friends or two lovers or whatever talk to each other, and you're just sitting there listening to their conversation. At that point, it's kind of weird, and you probably want to leave. The last one I wanted to mention was the DMPC. I'm sure if you watched these videos before, you knew I was going to mention it at some point, right? A DMPC, a Dungeon Master controls everything that the players don't, So the DM creates the general story as the author. Let's pretend like it's a book. The author of the book. But the players are the editors of the book, right? So they get to change the story in which way they want to do it. But when a DM inserts a DMPC, it's usually to try to railroad players into what they want them to do, because they have something planned. It's going to happen no matter what. The players can make choices, but each choice will always lead back to that one thing that they planned. And if you're noticing that a lot, then get out. But that's a side point. The DMPC is when the DM creates a player, creates a character to be a player in their own campaign. It's as weird as it sounds, because they already know what's going to happen. They're the one creating what's happening. So they're already going to know what's happening. So the DMPC is going to know the best routes, the best solutions for the riddles. They're going to know where everything's at, all the loot, everything like that. And if the chances are pretty good, the DM is going to give them stats that are they're just not possible. They might give them 3 or 4 different class combinations of things, and not really follow the level up to level 20 type stuff. They might just make them 4 classes that are all level 20 in one character, and their lowest stat is at 18. And why would you want to be in a campaign like that? Because they're just telling you a story. Basically, you might as well just go read a book, and you did the same thing. So if you're noticing that there's a DMPC who's coming to the rescue all the time for the party, and or maybe he talks down to the party like, "Oh, you weaklings," what fun is that for you as a player? I certainly don't find that stuff fun. But you will have situations. For me specifically, I like to add specific for myself, since a lot of you do watch my campaign too, so you'll notice some of these things. I do allow players to bring along NPCs, but I don't play it like the NPC wants, I should come with you. It's usually the players saying, please come with us. It's a difference. If the players want that to happen, it's going to happen. But I still don't make the NPC overpowered, flawless, and they do everything. Why even have a party? So there you have it. The players should never ever be the backstory of a game. And that's if the DM has a DMPC who's like that, then you're the backstory in their game for their own character, and it's weird, and you should probably just leave. That's all the points I had, but ideally, when it comes down to, is that D&D is a collaborative creation. So when your choices in your character or yourself as a person are devalued by the DM, it can be frustrating and lead to a lot of problems down the line. Life is busy, so it just seems to get more busy as we get older. So just remember that your time is valuable and that you yourself are valuable as a person. If you're ever in a situation that you're uncomfortable in, just leave it. You don't have to justify yourself to anybody. Everyone's there to have a good time, and you can really use this advice in life too for everything. But specifically for D&D, everyone's there to have a good time, and maybe make some friends along the way. But when someone's actively trying to ruin your good time, it's probably not worth your time to be there, and maybe you should consider an exit strategy. Well, this has been Saul Sunforge. Have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy my content. If you do, consider a like and a subscribe. Let your friends know. I appreciate all of you, and I appreciate your time. Have a great day.